The film begins with former hockey player Eric, who's become addicted to banned substances. He used to be a strong guy who loved to win, but addiction was one thing he couldn't defeat. Eric wakes up in a cabin surrounded by mountains. On the bathroom mirror, it says 7 days. He recalls the recent accident he had while high, and his mother Susan told him there would be a trial, followed by rehab. Eric changes the number on the mirror to 6. He keeps checking the time, sticking to a schedule. Soon, he starts his workout. Exactly at 8 a.m., the guy leaves the house and takes a substance that brings him back to his favorite state. Suddenly, the door slams shut. As a result, Eric is left outside in just his underwear and a t-shirt. He kicks down the door, gets dressed, grabs his snowboard and necessary gear, and runs to the bus stop, but he misses it. Eric catches a ride and eats some snow along the way. The driver is a girl named Sarah. She explains that it's not good to eat snow because her dog urinates on it, and it could lead to hypothermia and dehydration, which most people don't know about. When they arrive at the mountains, the guy takes the funicular up, uses more substances, and starts snowboarding. He calls his mom, but she doesn't pick up right away. Eric leaves a voice message saying he went to the mountains for a couple of days to snowboard. He makes sharp turns on his snowboard and doesn't notice that the weather suddenly worsens. Meanwhile, Sarah, who works as a rescuer, sees a message saying there will be heavy snowfall soon. Eric is intoxicated and doesn't realize the risk. He decides to ride on a closed slope. Due to the heavy snowstorm, visibility gets worse, and soon it's impossible to see anything. The guy gets off his snowboard and tries to go back, but he realizes he's walking in circles. Eric opens his phone and discovers that there's no signal. He heads toward the forest and decides to make a fire to warm up. The guy sits under a pine tree, breaks branches, and stacks them, but he can't start the fire. He only has a few matches, and they seem to have gotten wet. Eric remembers his childhood when he couldn't play hockey. Back then, his father supported him, saying no one in their family ever gives up. Eric jumps up and starts running to the slope again, gets on his snowboard. The storm has subsided, and stars are visible in the sky, but Eric still doesn't know where to go and nearly falls off the edge. Luckily, he grabs a tree. He decides to hike to the top of the mountain while he still has the strength. There's a better chance of being found there. Suddenly, 2 wolves appear in his path. Eric scares them away by shouting and raising his snowboard, and keeps going, sinking into the snow. Suddenly, he notices a whole pack of wolves ahead. He digs a hole in the snow and lies there. The guy recalls his parents arguing about hockey. His mother was against it, thinking his father was pushing him too hard, and the boy didn't have time to play with his friends or watch TV. His father, holding a glass, screams that he won't let his son become a loser and says he regrets marrying her. In the morning, Eric is overcome with thirst and wants to eat snow, but he remembers Sarah's words and refuses the idea. He decides to look for the rescue base. He draws a map in the snow, recalling where he has been and where he's moved recently, trying to orient himself. However, he can't figure it out, and the guy admits that he's lost. He goes back down the slope and stops at a clean snowfield. Eric takes a few steps and suddenly falls through the ice. His bag with the substances sinks to the bottom, and Eric risks his life to retrieve it. Somehow, he pulls himself out of the icy water and limps to the nearest rock, frozen with cold. Eric remembers a hockey game and how the coach scolded him for not being a team player. After that, he starts acting. He takes off his wet clothes and sits naked in the cold, trying to get his blood flowing using a special breathing technique. Eric looks at his powder in the bag and suddenly makes an unexpected decision. He pours it out and grabs snow to melt with his body heat and drink the water. By night, the temperature drops, but Eric doesn't give up. He promises himself that he will get out of this hell. Suddenly, the guy notices the rescue base at the top of the mountain and is overjoyed by his luck. Tomorrow he'll be there. He puts on his dried clothes and builds a shelter under the rocks, making bedding from bark and branches. Again, wolves howl all night. In the morning, he checks if there's a signal. Then, at 8 a.m., he begins his journey. Weak, he walks through the forest. His vision starts blurring from the lack of substances. Suddenly, Eric feels very sick, gets nauseous, and falls onto the snow. He has no strength left, and he lies there until night. Again, memories flood him. How he first tried banned substances with a former hockey player when he came to visit him. His friend said he missed the game, blamed Eric for quitting hockey. He said only substances gave him that adrenaline rush, like during a match. On the fourth day, Eric crawls out of the snow cave where he slept and realizes that his sock, soaked in blood, has frozen to his frozen foot. One sharp movement, and he tears off a piece of skin along with the flesh down to the bone. All day, he continues walking through the endless snow toward the base. However, at some point, he realizes he can't see either the base or the funicular, which makes him react dramatically, as it's already the fourth day, and he hasn't reached people. But he decides to keep going. By nightfall, he reaches a broken tree and sees an animal skeleton under it. He examines it. Maybe there's still some meat left. But no, it looks like the wolves have gnawed the bones. Meanwhile, his phone battery is almost dead, and the guy realizes he won't be able to call for help. His mother reads the Bible and then tries to call her son, but hears the voicemail. She leaves her apologies for the harsh words she said recently and asks him to call back. The fifth day arrives. Eric checks his leg and is horrified. It's all turned blue. He has to repeat the same procedure with the sock as yesterday. A terrible hunger forces him to eat his own flesh, just torn off. He only bites a small piece and hides the rest in his pocket. He's once again flooded with memories, how he was addicted to banned substances and destroyed his house. His mother tried to help him, but Eric didn't want to listen. Meanwhile, his mother starts worrying more and more about him, as he missed the trial. She calls his friend, who gives her the address of the house where the guy lives. His mother arrives at the cottage, sees dishes with spoiled food, a note that says 6 days, and realizes that her son hasn't been there for a while. But his keys, phone, and wallet are still with him. Susan goes to the rescuers. She explains to Sarah that her son called her, which he doesn't usually do. She believes her son wanted to let her know that he's in touch and will show up for the trial. She convinces the girl to start the search immediately, as she's sure something happened. Sarah recalls Eric. A search operation begins. All communication channels are checked, and a helicopter with Sarah on board flies over the area. Eric hears its noise. He tries to get to an area where it's visible. However, the helicopter flies past, and Sarah doesn't notice him. Eric sends the radio toward that direction, hoping to catch a signal, but he fails again. He falls, realizing that maybe this was his last chance for salvation. Meanwhile, the pilot tells Sarah that they need to return to base since it's getting dark. They fly away with nothing. The guy, lying in the cold snow and looking at the frosty sky, remembers how he lay with his mom in a warm bed as a child, and she said she loved him with all her heart. He doesn't want her to find him like this. Sarah offers Susan a blanket and says that they can't search at night, as it's risky, and the rescuers themselves could get hurt. Susan, crying, explains to Sarah how much mothers are attached to their children. She begs her to find her son no matter what. Meanwhile, Eric doesn't give up. In the morning, he can barely stand. His face is frozen. He forces himself to eat a piece of his own flesh. He realizes he needs to get to the top of the mountain, and suddenly, his almost dead radio catches a signal. Sarah's colleague asks to stop the rescue operation, as it's impossible to survive more than 3 days in this cold winter. The girl agrees, realizing that continuing the operation is pointless, and after this stage, they begin searching for the body. But Eric keeps climbing the slope. He's already deciphering the voices on the radio and continues to climb higher. Just a little more, he can already understand what people are saying, but suddenly, the exhausted guy loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he remembers how he left hockey, even though he was the best player on the team, after the argument with the coach. He is overwhelmed by even more unpleasant memories. how his father left the family and he ran after his car. This motivates Eric to crawl with his last strength. Finally, he reaches the mountain peak. The radio works, but there's only 4% battery left. The guy thinks for a moment and makes a difficult decision. He gives up trying to contact the rescuers, considering himself 1 foot already in the grave. Eric decides to record a message for his mother on the radio's dictaphone before it completely dies. He says that most likely he doesn't have much time left, but he's glad for how it all ends. He apologizes for everything and admits that he's a coward. A tear rolls down his cheek. Eric philosophically says that life forces us to look ahead, but to understand its meaning, we must look back. He turns off the recording and prepares for death, looking at the beautiful snowy mountains from the top. The radio dies, and he closes his eyes. Sarah informs Susan that the operation has been canceled, but suddenly, her colleague yells that he caught a signal. The girl gets into a helicopter and flies to the specified location. The guy is found on the ridge. Susan stays at the base and prays for her son's survival. And her prayers are heard, because Eric, though he looks awful, is alive. His mother cries and tells him how much she loves him. Over time, Eric becomes a coach. He's sober, married, and has children, but he has lost his legs below the knees. The man tells his young pupils that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to see the light. This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.